Have you ever wondered why some men effortlessly capture a woman's attention with just a simple morning text, while others get left on read for hours or even days? The answer isn't luck, and it's definitely not about sending more messages or trying harder. Instead, it comes down to understanding something most guys completely miss about female psychology and the ancient principles of Stoicism that can transform your entire approach to communication. What I'm about to share with you goes against everything you've been told about texting women. These aren't your typical pickup lines or cheesy compliments that make you blend in with every other guy, flooding her phone. These are 7 specific morning text strategies rooted in Stoic philosophy that create genuine intrigue and attraction. But here's the thing that makes this so powerful. When you understand the psychological principles behind these messages, you're not just learning what to text. You're learning how to think like the kind of man women naturally gravitate toward. Before I reveal these 7 forbidden texts, let me tell you why this approach works where others fail. Most men make the critical mistake of trying to impress women through their words rather than their character. They send paragraphs explaining their feelings or bombard her with attention-seeking messages that actually push her away. But Stoic principles teach us something completely different. They show us that true attraction comes from self-control, emotional discipline, and the kind of quiet confidence that speaks volumes without saying much at all. The reality is this: women receive dozens of texts every day from men who are desperately trying to get their attention. Your typical "good morning, beautiful" text gets lost in a sea of identical messages from guys who all sound exactly the same. But when you understand how to communicate with the wisdom of ancient philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, your messages cut through that noise like a sword through silk. Now, I need to be completely honest with you about something. These texts work so well that you need to use them responsibly. When you start applying Stoic principles to your communication, you'll notice women responding to you differently. They'll be more engaged, more curious, and frankly, more attracted to the man behind the message. But with that power comes responsibility. Use these techniques to build genuine connections, not to manipulate or deceive. Let me give you some context about why Stoicism is so effective in modern dating. The Stoics believed in focusing on what you can control while accepting what you cannot. In texting, this means focusing on being the best version of yourself rather than trying to control her response. This shift in mindset is incredibly attractive because it demonstrates emotional maturity and self-respect. Women can sense when a man is needy or desperate, and they can equally sense when a man is centered and confident in himself. The first principle we need to understand is the concept of emotional independence. Stoics teach us that our happiness shouldn't depend on external validation, including how quickly someone responds to our texts. When you truly embody this principle, it shows up in your communication style. Your messages become less about seeking approval and more about genuine connection. This creates a magnetic quality that women find irresistible because it's so rare in today's world. Think about it from her perspective for a moment. She wakes up to notifications from multiple men, each one more desperate for her attention than the last. Then she receives a message from you that's different. It's confident without being arrogant, engaging without being needy, and intriguing without being manipulative. This message stands out not because it's louder than the others, but because it comes from a fundamentally different place of inner strength. The second principle is understanding the power of restraint. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of saying only what is necessary and meaningful. In the context of morning texts, This means every word serves a purpose. You're not texting just to fill silence or because you feel obligated to maintain constant contact. You're communicating because you have something valuable to share, or because you genuinely want to connect with her on a deeper level. Most men fail at texting because they treat it like a performance rather than authentic communication. They craft messages designed to impress rather than express who they really are. But Stoic philosophy teaches us that authenticity is far more powerful than any performance. When your texts reflect your genuine thoughts and feelings, filtered through the wisdom of emotional discipline, they carry a weight and sincerity that manufactured messages simply cannot match. The third principle involves understanding timing and presence. Stoics emphasize being fully present in each moment, rather than constantly worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. When it comes to morning texts, this means your message should reflect your current state of mind and energy, not your anxiety about whether she'll respond or your regret about yesterday's conversation. This presence creates an energy in your communication that women find incredibly attractive. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. These 7 texts I'm about to share aren't just random messages that happen to work. Each one is carefully constructed using specific psychological principles that tap into fundamental aspects of human nature. They create curiosity gaps that her mind naturally wants to close. They demonstrate qualities like confidence, mystery, and emotional intelligence that women find irresistibly attractive in a partner. The beauty of using Stoic principles in your texting is that you're not putting on an act or trying to be someone you're not. Instead, you're becoming the best version of yourself. You're developing genuine confidence, real emotional strength, and authentic charisma that extends far beyond your text messages. Women sense this authenticity, and it draws them to you like a magnet. But here's something crucial that most dating advice completely ignores. These texts work because they reflect internal changes, not just external techniques. If you try to use these messages without understanding the mindset behind them, they'll fall flat. The power isn't in the words themselves, it's in the man who writes them. That's why we need to understand not just what to text, but how to think. Each of these 7 forbidden texts targets a different aspect of female psychology, while demonstrating core Stoic virtues. Some create intrigue through mystery, others build attraction through confidence, and still others establish connection through vulnerability expressed with strength. But all of them share one common thread. They come from a place of emotional centeredness rather than neediness or desperation. The first text we're going to explore completely reframes the typical good morning message. Instead of seeking her attention, it demonstrates that you're already living an interesting life that she might want to be part of. This subtle shift changes everything about how she perceives and responds to you. Rather than seeing you as another guy competing for her time, she starts to see you as someone whose time might be valuable to earn. The second text leverages something psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect, which is our brain's tendency to remember incomplete or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. When you create an open loop in your morning message, her mind naturally wants to close it. But here's the key. You're not being manipulative or playing games. You're sharing something genuinely intriguing from your life while leaving space for curiosity to build. This approach works because it demonstrates that you have a rich inner world and interesting experiences happening beyond your phone screen. Most men text women as if their entire existence revolves around getting a response. But when your message hints at adventures, insights, or experiences, that exist independently of her reaction. It positions you as the kind of person others want to orbit around, rather than someone desperately seeking orbit around others. The third text taps into something even deeper in human psychology. It uses what Stoics call preferred indifference, things that are generally good but don't determine our happiness or worth. When you reference something you genuinely enjoy or value in your morning text, but frame it in a way that shows you're not attached to outcomes, it creates a powerful dynamic. You're sharing your authentic self while demonstrating the kind of emotional freedom that makes people feel safe and attracted. Here's what makes this so effective. Women are constantly evaluating whether a man's interest in them comes from genuine appreciation or from desperation and scarcity. When your text reflects someone who has standards, preferences, and a life full of meaning beyond romantic conquest, it signals high value in the most natural way possible. You're not trying to prove your worth. You're simply being someone who is inherently worthy. The fourth text introduces an element that most men are terrified to use: playful challenge. But this isn't about being mean or creating conflict. Stoic philosophy teaches us about the importance of honest discourse and intellectual engagement. When you challenge her thinking or playfully disagree with something in your morning message, you're treating her as an equal capable of engaging in meaningful conversation, rather than someone who needs to be placated or impressed. This approach works because it breaks the pattern of validation seeking that characterizes most male-female texting interactions. Instead of telling her what you think she wants to hear, you're being authentic enough to have your own opinions and confident enough to express them respectfully. This creates the kind of dynamic tension that keeps conversations interesting and makes her think about you long after reading your message. The psychological principle at work here is called the Benjamin Franklin effect. We tend to like people more after we've done something for them or engaged with them intellectually. When your text requires her to think, respond thoughtfully, or consider a different perspective, it creates a small investment on her part that actually increases her interest in continuing the interaction. The fifth text employs what I call strategic vulnerability. Stoics understood that true strength includes the ability to acknowledge weakness or uncertainty without being diminished by it. When you share something personal in your morning text, not your deepest trauma or insecurities, but something real and human, it creates instant connection while demonstrating emotional intelligence. The key is in the framing. You're not sharing to get sympathy or validation. You're sharing because you're comfortable enough with yourself to be genuine. This type of vulnerability, when expressed from a place of strength rather than neediness, is incredibly attractive because it's so rare. Most people hide behind masks of perfection, especially in early romantic interactions. What makes this particularly powerful is that it invites reciprocal vulnerability. When you model authentic sharing, it gives her permission to drop her guard as well. This creates the foundation for real connection rather than the surface-level banter that characterizes most modern dating interactions. You're not just trying to get her attention. You're creating space for genuine human connection. The sixth text utilizes the psychological principle of future projection. Instead of focusing on the present moment or past experiences, you're painting a picture that includes both of you in some future scenario. But here's the crucial difference from typical future-focused texts. You're not making promises or creating pressure. You're simply sharing a vision that feels natural and appealing. Stoics taught about the importance of having a clear vision for life while remaining unattached to specific outcomes. When your morning text references potential future experiences, whether it's trying a new restaurant, attending an event, or exploring an idea together. It should feel like a natural extension of your existing interests rather than something you're manufacturing to impress her. This works because it helps her imagine positive experiences with you without creating the pressure of formal plans or commitments. Her mind starts to associate you with pleasant possibilities rather than just another text conversation. You're planting seeds of anticipation that grow naturally, rather than forcing immediate decisions or responses. The seventh and most powerful text combines all these principles into what I call the philosopher's paradox. It demonstrates deep thinking while remaining playfully light, shows confidence while acknowledging uncertainty, and creates connection while maintaining independence. This text type works because it reflects the complexity and depth that characterizes genuinely attractive people. The paradox is that by not trying to impress her, you become impressive. By not chasing her attention, you earn her interest. By not trying to control her response, you influence her feelings. This isn't manipulation. It's the natural result of becoming someone who embodies the qualities that people find naturally attractive. Each of these 7 texts works because they reflect internal qualities rather than external techniques. They demonstrate that you're someone worth getting to know not because you're trying to convince her of your value, but because your value speaks for itself through your words, timing, and approach to communication. Now that you understand the psychological principles behind these messages, let's dive into the specific texts themselves and examine exactly how to craft each one for maximum impact while maintaining complete authenticity. The first forbidden text breaks every rule you've ever learned about morning messages. While other men are sending boring, good morning, beautiful texts that get ignored, this message creates instant curiosity and positions you as someone living a genuinely interesting life. Here's what it looks like. You wake up, and instead of immediately reaching for your phone to validate her existence, you do something meaningful first. Maybe you read a few pages of philosophy, work out, or simply observe something interesting about your morning routine. Then you text her something like this. Just had the strangest realization about morning routines while making coffee. Made me think of our conversation yesterday about habits. Notice what's happening here psychologically. You're not asking for her attention. You're sharing a genuine moment from your life. The text implies you are thinking about her naturally, not desperately. Most importantly, you're creating what psychologists call a curiosity gap. Her brain wants to know what the realization was, but you haven't given her the full picture yet. This works because it demonstrates several attractive qualities simultaneously. First, you're showing that you have a rich inner world that exists independently of her responses. Second, you're connecting something from your real experience to your previous conversations, which shows you actually listen and think about what she shares. Third, you're being mysterious without being manipulative. The mystery comes from genuinely having something interesting to share, not from artificially withholding information to create drama. The second forbidden text leverages what Stoics call the discipline of desire. Instead of desperately wanting her validation, you're sharing something you genuinely found valuable or meaningful. This text might look like, reading about ancient philosophers this morning and stumbled across something that completely changed how I think about challenges. Kind of want to test it out today. The power here isn't in the specific content, but in the mindset it reveals. You're someone who actively seeks wisdom and growth. You're not texting because you're bored or needy, but because you encountered something genuinely worth sharing. What makes this irresistible is that it positions you as someone who is constantly evolving and learning. Women find intellectual curiosity incredibly attractive because it suggests depth and the potential for interesting conversations. But more than that, you're not trying to impress her with how smart you are. You're simply sharing something that genuinely interested you, which feels authentic rather than performative. The third text employs strategic playfulness combined with genuine observation. After you've established some rapport, you might send something like, "You strike me as someone who has strong opinions about coffee shop music. Am I completely wrong about this?" This text works on multiple levels. First, you're showing that you think about her beyond just physical attraction. You're noticing personality traits and making observations about who she is as a person. Second, you're being playfully wrong on purpose, which gives her an easy way to engage and correct you if she wants to. The psychological principle at work here is called the confirmation bias loop. When you make an observation about her personality, even if it's slightly off, her brain automatically starts thinking about whether you're right or wrong. This keeps you in her thoughts longer than a simple question would. Plus, if your observation is surprisingly accurate, it demonstrates that you're paying attention to details that other men miss entirely. The fourth forbidden text challenges her thinking in a respectful but engaging way. This might look like, "Been thinking about what you said about work-life balance yesterday. I think you might be approaching it backwards, but in an interesting way." This text is powerful because it shows you're intellectually engaged with her ideas, rather than just agreeing with everything she says to avoid conflict. You're treating her as an intellectual equal, capable of defending her positions and considering alternative perspectives. Most men are terrified of disagreeing with women they're attracted to, thinking it will push them away. But the opposite is often true. When you respectfully challenge her thinking, you're demonstrating confidence in your own ideas while showing respect for her ability to engage in meaningful discourse. This creates the kind of intellectual tension that makes conversations memorable and makes her think about you between interactions. The fifth text reveals calculated vulnerability without neediness. After you've built some connection, you might share something like, "Had one of those moments this morning where I realized I might be completely wrong about something I've believed for years." Weirdly liberating. This text works because it shows emotional intelligence and self-awareness. You're comfortable enough with yourself to admit uncertainty, which paradoxically demonstrates strength rather than weakness. There you have it. 7 forbidden morning texts that work not because they're clever tricks or manipulative tactics, but because they reflect the kind of man women naturally find attractive. Remember, these messages are just the surface level. The real transformation happens when you internalize the Stoic principles behind them. When you become someone who genuinely embodies emotional independence, intellectual curiosity, and authentic confidence, your entire approach to communication changes. These texts work because they come from a place of inner strength rather than desperate need for validation. Start implementing these principles today and watch how differently women begin to respond to you.